everybody. It's attorney Laura Sterling. I know you think it's kind of funny that I appear and I'm smiling, almost laughing. Well, right when it's about to go on, my alarm goes off because I set an alarm for everything I have to do during the day. Otherwise, I'm lost, right? I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I have to be alerted. I'm getting old and my memory's starting to fade, so I need to have that alarm ready. So I just had to laugh because I'm like, oh my gosh, I made sure everything was muted except my alarm. Anyway, hello, how are you? Welcome to my live. If this is your first time watching me, welcome. If this is your 100th time seeing me, welcome as well. You know what to expect. So I'm glad you could join us. I want to give you some news. Those of you who have been watching my live shows, you know I have newscaster Sterling, right? Well, newscaster Sterling is taking a little break. She says there's not much news going on right now. When there is, she'll come back. But right now, she's taking a little break. So she's taking a breather. She's got her feet up somewhere, watching us, drinking her mate or whatever she wants to drink, and just listening to some music and listening to us and enjoying herself while I'm here talking the entire time. Good for her, huh? But anyway, so I just wanted to give you that little heads up. So, as you know, it's a month of September. What does that mean? Kids are back in school, hopefully, right? Here in Florida, we're kind of hit and miss because at the peak of hurricane season, kids kind of are in and out of school, but they're in school now. They've been going to school for about a month. You notice it because, well, I don't know if you know this. If you watch me on Facebook or follow me on Facebook, you know I'm a runner. And right now is a nice time. I get up before the sun comes up and it's kind of cooler and the humidity is a little less. So it's a little easier to run nowadays. And so I'm enjoying that. Not enjoying the shorter days. I like my long days, but one for the other. We got to get it cool here. We got to get it cooled down. So a lot has happened since I saw you last. If you've seen my Facebook posts, I was in Ireland. Why was I in Ireland? Come on, you people know me. You know I'm a big Notre Dame fan. So Notre Dame was over there playing Navy, go Irish. And of course we won, but we had a fabulous time. And you can see by my postings, that was only a small portion of what we did. I mean, we had such a great time. And this is my second time in Ireland. I was there quite a few years ago. My son studied over there for 6 weeks in college. So we went over there because, of course, we had to go get him and bring him back. We couldn't just fly him back. We had to go get him, stay a week, and then come back. And actually, Ireland was the first time I ever crossed the pond. So I have kind of a special place in my heart for Ireland. In fact, when we landed in Ireland this last time, I clapped. Yay, Ireland. I was so excited to get there. I enjoy Ireland. It's a beautiful city or beautiful country. We stayed in Dublin. Beautiful city, really enjoyed ourselves. So, take a look at the pictures. I might post some more down the road just to give you a little more taste of what it was like on my trip. There were, I think at the game, I think there were almost 50,000 people in that stadium. It was their soccer stadium, or as those of you who don't live in the U.S., your football stadium. So, yeah, we had it packed to the rim. So that's a lot of money for Ireland, right? Bringing all those people in to celebrate an American college football game. So we had a really good time. Also, let me see what else has happened. Oh, I saw Barbie, the movie Barbie, the other day. Now, I must say, I'm no movie critic, of course, because I just watch movies to watch movies. I have to say, I like the message in Barbie, although I felt it was a little long, but I did like the message. I enjoyed the message. It really kind of took me to heart and really made me think, and I enjoyed that part of it. But it was a little too long. I was wondering when it was going to finish. And let me tell you, I was a Barbie gal. Growing up, I had every Barbie under the sun. So I enjoyed my Barbie. So I did look forward to seeing the movie, and I did enjoy the message in the movie. So just a little critic there. You can think what you want. You go see it and tell me what you think in Facebook. Okay. What have we been talking about all month? Guardianships, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, hey, settle in because I like to take my time. I like to answer your questions. And please feel free to send the questions as I'm speaking because I'll stop and I'll answer your question because I'm not here for me to just spew out information. I'm here for you to learn. And so that's what I want to do. So make sure you send me your questions. We'll post them. I'll answer them right away. So sit back, get your little, I have my 2 bottles of water, get yourself something to nosh on, maybe a pen and a piece of paper. Or, if you're not from my generation where you need a pen and a piece of paper, maybe something electronic that you can take some notes and we'll both learn. So sit back, relax, let's get started. What is a guardianship? Now, when I talk to families, when they call me about a guardianship, I always say this. It's like and I do this even when I'm on the phone, I'll do this. You're stepping into the body of that individual. So let's say I want to be the guardian of my mother. So I apply to be the guardian, and we'll go through that. And I'm appointed the guardian, the complete property, person, everything. I now become my mother. Everybody should talk to me. Social Security, her pension, her bank account, her investments, her mortgage company, her car loan, whatever it may be, the doctors, the surgeons. Everybody should talk to me because I am her court appointed guardian and I step into her. Now, always do things that I tell my families as well, because I get these questions most often. So this may stop you from sending me this question because I'll answer it for you. It does not mean that you are financially responsible for, like my mother. It does not mean, again, I'll say it again. It does not mean that I am financially responsible for my mother. But of course, I would do whatever it takes financially for my mother. But it doesn't mean, let's say my mother's at the hospital and she racks up a bill. The bill's $1.2 million, which in a hospital is pretty easy to do, right? The hospital can't come to me and say, oh, well, Miss Sterling, you are the guardian, so you got to come out of pocket and pay this bill. No. My job is to either maybe apply for a public benefit so that that bill can get paid. Or maybe if she has insurance, to make sure that the hospital gets her insurance so they can bill her insurance. Or if she has so much money that she can pay that, to pay that. So that's my job. My job is to rally her assets and put them out as necessary. So it's not for me to come out of pocket. Now, I can always come out of pocket if I want to buy my mother, I don't know, some clothing, or buy her a TV, or buy her, some books, whatever, toiletries. I can surely take that out of my pocket if I want to. I don't have to, but I can. And then, secondly, it does not mean that I have to physically take care of my mother. Oh my gosh, I've got 6 kids, all under the age of 10, and I got, 2 dogs, and I got a husband. And how am I going to take care of my mother in my house? No, no, no. I don't have to. Of course, I can. I have lots of family guardianships where they care for their loved one in their home, and that's fine. But if I can't physically do it, or I financially can't do it, my job is to make sure she's taken care of. What does that mean? If she needs to go into a skilled care facility, if she can go into an assisted living facility, if she can go into her own little independent living apartment. Oh, some of them here. I've been doing a lot of tours of them. Oh my God, they're beautiful. One actually I walked in, it was like a cruise ship. It was this huge, Gone with the Wind. That's what it reminded me of. This huge stairwell, the staircase that went up. And this huge chandelier. I'm like, where am I? Yeah, where am I? I mean, it was better than my house. I'm like, can I move in? So it's making sure that they're taken care of. So that's what your responsibility is as a guardian. And I get so many families that contact me and they're scared that they're going to have to pay the bill and they don't make the money, or they're going to have to take mom home or dad home with them. And I reassure them, no, that's not the case. So I just want to clear that up regarding the guardianship. So let's pretend I'm going to be the guardian of my mother here in the state of Florida, because remember, I'm in Florida. You're going to want to check the laws in your own state or your own country about guardianship. And they may call it different things, like California. Remember Britney Spears, the conservatorship? They may call it, or even that guy from, what is it? The football player, the big football player, the longest yard or whatever, where he had a conservatorship over him, but they didn't really get adoption, whatever it may be. It can be named different things in different states. Here in the state of Florida, it's called a guardianship. So I want to be guardian of my mother here in the state of Florida. How does it work? Okay, well, number one, you have to have an attorney. So when you're applying to be somebody's guardian, the guardian has to have an attorney. They cannot do it on their own. So I need to hire an attorney. So I hire an attorney. Now the attorney starts drafting the paperwork. So the first case that is opened is called an incapacity case. So what does that mean? In a guardianship, a person has to be determined incapacitated, meaning they cannot make decisions on their own. And there's a whole list of rights that have to be gone through to see, okay, can they do anything here? Can they vote? Can they decide on where to travel or where to live or hold employment or go to school? Can they make medical decisions on their own? Can they apply for government benefits on their own? Those are kind of the things that we look at in an incapacity hearing. Now, who decides whether I'm incapacitated or not, or whether my mother is incapacitated or not? Me? No, I'm not a professional. I can't say that. The court, when they open the case, the incapacity case, that's all we're talking about, they appoint 3 examining committees in the state of Florida to go and see my mother. One of them has to be a medical doctor. They have to be a medical doctor, at least one of them out of the 3. The second one can be a doctor again, or it can be a PhD, a psychiatrist, whatever, psychologist. That's what it can be. The last one, of course, all 3 of them can be doctors, but why would you if you have other people on the list? The last one can be a lay person, can be a nurse, can be a social worker, can be a professional guardian, can also be, I even know attorneys that are on the examining committee. So those 3 individuals go out, wherever my mother is. If my mother's at home, they may go to the home, or they may have me bring her if she's able to go to their office. Or they may go to the hospital, or they may go to the nursing home she's at, or the assisted living, wherever she may be, that's where they may go and examine her. Well, now, as you can see, we have these great technological advances. Some of them may even request to do it by Zoom or by FaceTime, where they can interact with that person. Whether or not that's as good as being in person, because as you know, some of us have difficulty with technology. And maybe if you're trying to do an examination on somebody's mental capability, you're doing it by Zoom, and they're like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. And they don't know. I mean, are they incapacitated, or they just do not know how to use the Zoom? So I always think it's best in person, but that's my opinion. So they go out, they do an examination of the person, they'll talk to staff, they'll try to call the my mother's doctor, maybe they'll talk to family, and then they issue a report, a written report to the court saying, here's how long my exam was, where I examined them, who I spoke to during the exam, and then they go through the physical exam. Of course, the layperson and the PhD are not going to do a physical exam. I mean, what's the point? I'm a licensed social worker, as you know, as you may or may not know, as well as an attorney. I'm not going to do a physical exam. I have no idea what I'd be looking for. So that's usually set apart for the MD. But it'll say physical exam, mental health exam, capacity exam, all of that. And I'll write notes so that the court can truly see what I did. And then it'll have little rights, like I said, the right to vote, the right to an education, the right to hold a job, the right to get married, the right to apply for government benefits, the right to make medical decisions. I'll check whether they lack or they have that. And then at the end, I'll suggest what type of guardianship that it should be, what I recommend. And we'll go through that. Is it plenary? Is it limited? Is it no guardianship whatsoever? Because I think they have their full capacity. So whatever that is, I submit that to the court. Oh, hey, Omar, how are you? Oh, beautiful water. Look at that. Doesn't that look nice? Being out on a boat. Hi, a brew. I'm so sorry. I'm going to pronounce that incorrectly. Nice to see you too. I love it that you guys put pictures here so I can see you all. Anyway, thank you for listening. Oh, Stephanie, good afternoon, Attorney Sterling. Happy to see you and learn from you. Oh, I'm glad I can be here to educate you. I took a break from teaching at the university this year because it got to be too much. So these are kind of my university educational issues, my little live here. So anyway, so those 3 reports are filed and they'll recommend whatever it is. Generally, we go, okay, generally, hopefully they all agree. If they all agree on the same type of guardianship, great. If they don't, if there's, if there's a difference, maybe one recommends a limited, one recommends a plenary, then what happens is you try to agree, okay, what can the person keep, what can they not keep? Because we're relying on these doctor's reports. Now, sometimes I've had to call these the what do I want to say, the author of these reports to come to court to testify about their report, because maybe the report is not as easily understood, or maybe there's some conflict about it, or maybe something. So I've called them in to ask them so that we can kind of find out where they're coming from and what they truly mean by their report. All. So, I kind of went black there for a little bit. But let's say they say that she's incapacitated. She's unable to make any decisions whatsoever. So then the court would then determine her totally incapacitated. Now, again, if it's limited, they'll determine that she's limited and what rights she's able to keep and what rights she's not able to keep. So let's say she's able to keep the right to vote, the right to make medical decisions, and the right to decide where she lives. So that would be a limited, because the rest of them are saying, no, 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 she lacks the ability to do those. So no, she's going to be a limited. So the court would determine what type of incapacity, again, limited, full incapacity, whatever. Once that's determined, that case closes. That incapacity case is closed. So it's no longer there, just closes and it goes away. And that incapacity proceeding is mental health proceeding in court. So that's sealed, meaning the regular person can't get into the docket and say, oh, I wonder what these reports said about Laura Sterling's mother. Oh my God. No, it's completely sealed. It's off. Then what happens is we'll have filed the guardianship proceeding saying, okay, if you determine my mother to be incapacitated, whatever it may be, I'm applying to be the guardian. So I have to put in my application, file the pleadings. Again, my attorney does all that. An oath saying who's going to represent me in the case, somebody wants to sue me for misappropriation, whatever. So I'm wanting to be the guardian. So I'm kind of sitting in court going, me, but I've done all my paperwork. Now, here in Florida, which in most states, they will require a criminal background check. So I always ask my families, do you have any history? And I just, it's certain crimes that automatically just disqualify you. But I just ask the plain old question, have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime? Because that way I can kind of hear what they have to say. Now, 90% of the time they say, no, I'm squeaky clean. Fabulous. Sometimes I get, well, you see, I blah, blah, blah. So depending on what it is, I may say, you don't qualify as a guardian, because under the Florida statutes, if you've been arrested, if you've been convicted of certain crimes, you won't qualify. We just had that happen to somebody. So, and people make mistakes. I tell them, listen, we all make mistakes. Unfortunately, sometimes it kind of follows you. So let's say I'm squeaky clean. I don't have a criminal background, which I don't. I just want to point out. Then they look at my credit history. So I fill out an application. It's much like a job application. And I put my social security number. And most of the courts here in Florida, they'll run my background. They'll run my credit report. Some require that the client, the proposed guardian, prints out their free credit report. They send it to us and we send it to the court. But some counties run it on their own. Then if my credit history, because remember, I'm asking to take care of somebody's property. So they want to make sure I can take care of my own property, that I don't have like 2 or 3 bankruptcies that I haven't discharged yet, that I've got, 100 credit cards that are overdue or have not been paid, or I got judgments against me. The court's going to be like, you can't take care of your own finances. How can you take care of your mother's? So anyway, I get that. I clear all that. Then I get appointed as a guardian. Now let's go through the different guardianships. So the first guardianship is a voluntary guardianship. Now that sounds kind of funny, voluntary guardianship. So what does that mean? That means I want somebody, I have complete capacity like I do now, although it's questionable at times. I have complete capacity right now, but I want somebody to help me. I don't have anybody. I don't have any family, maybe, or maybe I do, and I want that family member to help me. But I don't want to appoint them power of attorney. I want to appoint them as guardian because then there'll be more checks and balances because then they're responsible to the court, right? And we'll talk about that later. They're responsible to the court. So I want a voluntary guardianship. So that means we don't have to do the incapacity part because I have capacity. And I have to get a doctor's letter on letterhead saying that I have the capacity to make this decision. That's all. That's all. I don't need the incapacity. I don't need three people coming out and examining me. It's going to be a waste of time. I just need a letter from the doctor. So, and then appear in court, file, the attorney files the pleadings for me, and then so and so becomes my voluntary guardianship. Meaning at any time I can go to the court as long as I have capacity and say, I don't want this guardian anymore. I don't like this guardian. We don't get along. I want somebody else, or I can do it myself. So that's a voluntary guardianship where I am actually going to the court and saying, I want a guardian and I have capacity. This is how I have capacity and I want that. And then if I want to dissolve it, I dissolve it. So, hey, Hillary, how are you? Why can a guardian have bankruptcies? Well, they can if they've been discharged and if they're further, if they're, how do I want to say, if they're old enough, like they're not recent. The courts that I practice in front of in guardianships and people that have bankruptcy, the first question they have is it discharged? Yeah. Listen, the courts understand that people, what do I want to say? People have financial issues sometimes. It's the way of the land. It's just how big of a financial issue do you have? If it's a bankruptcy, if it's several bankruptcies, that may make the court scratch their head. If it's one bankruptcy that was so many years ago and it's been discharged and blah, 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 the court may not really take that into consideration. It may just say, has that bankruptcy been discharged? So it's really up to the court how they feel and how argument of the attorney can be. Because I've argued several of my cases that have had credit issues and been kind of able to get the court to kind of agree to something. I had one that she had really poor credit history and the judge did want to appoint her, but the poor lady, it was her granddaughter, her niece or something, and the poor lady didn't have anybody else to do it for her. And so I convinced the judge to allow the granddaughter or the niece, whatever she was, to get her on Medicaid because she was in a nursing home and that's where she was going to stay. So I had the judge agree to put her, okay, let's just get her on Medicaid and then, we can withdraw the petition for the guardian of the property. And the grandma's income, her social security check, was going directly to the nursing home. So the guardian had nothing to do with it. She didn't touch any of the money. The money went directly. So the judge agreed until she was approved Medicaid, she could take care of that. But the money was not to go to her. The money was to continue to go to the nursing home. Once she's on Medicaid, then that guardian of the property was dissolved. So very good question, Hillary. And thank you so much for asking that because I think other people probably have the same question. So let me take a drink of water. I talk a lot, so water is always good. Okay, so move on. We're done with the voluntary guardianship. So our next one, like I spoke about, limited guardianship. What is a limited guardianship? Just the way it sounds, right? All these are pretty self-explanatory, right? Voluntary guardianship. We know what that means. Limited guardianship. What does that mean? It means the court is not approving all of your rights to be taken. Maybe just certain ones that maybe the examining committee feels that you can't do. Always a big one that seems to always end up in guardianship is applying for government benefits. That's a very difficult procedure. I have a hard time understanding it, and I deal with it all the time. So, maybe the limited guardianship is strictly for the purpose of applying for government benefits, is to make medical decisions, is to determine where they live, but everything else the person gets to keep. Vote, I'm telling you, vote is a big thing. I don't know why voting is a big thing, but I guess that's just because it's a big right here in the United States to be able to vote. So a lot of times my wards, no matter what condition they're in, they seem to be able to keep the right to vote. But anyway, or the right for social decisions. I'm not really sure what that is. I guess whether if they're in a facility, they can go to bingo. I'm going to tell you right now, if I go into a nursing home, I am going to bingo. I love me some bingo. As a matter of fact, many moons ago when I was just a child, I used to play bingo in the basement of my church, good old Catholic church. We used to love bingo. And this was back when you could smoke indoors here in the US. Remember that? And it was like one big cloud in the basement. And I used to love and go play bingo with my mother. And one year in bingo, I won this Barbie. Yes, Barbie and all these homemade clothes. Oh my gosh, I was ecstatic. Anyway, I think my brothers destroyed it many years later because, I had 3 brothers and you know what they did to Barbies. Anyway, I digress. So a limited guardianship. The guardian can only exercise the rights that have been taken from the ward. So I can only exercise the rights that have been taken from my mother. So I can't, if my mother retains the right to vote, I cannot vote for her. I can't because she's retaining that right to vote. So I can only do what is allowed by law for me to do that the court is taking away. So that's what a limited guardianship is. So the next guardianship is plenary. Now, that word is not self explanatory unless you know what plenary means. Plenary guardianship means of the entire person, the person and the property, meaning remember that whole visual I gave you? I'm stepping into my mother. I am now my mother. She has had every right taken from her and given to me. Kind of like you see those superhero movies where, they take the powers from the other one and now they have it. Kind of think of it that way. A plenary, plenary, guardianship is of the entire person. The entire person. So I can make medical decisions for the person. I can deal with the government benefits. I can talk to Social Security here in the US, maybe their pension, whatever it may be, I can deal with it. Now I'm going to tell you right now, just because I'm telling you you can do it doesn't mean it's easy. I have many, many, many guardians that try to deal with pensions and try to deal with the bank, and they have to take the document because you get a court order saying this, and they get it certified and they hand it to the pension or they hand it to the bank, and guess what they're told? Oh, we have to have our legal review this. Oh my goodness. So they give it to this phantom legal in the sky. I don't know where they are, but they hand it to their legal department. And then they come back and either say, oh yeah, no, or they say, okay, sure. But it usually takes a couple days. And sometimes they give us a hard time if they don't understand it. And then we have to explain to them or we have to get a more specific order. So don't always think it's easy. But you would think it is with a court order signed by a judge, right? I mean, how much higher can you go than something signed by a judge? But anyway, you have the ability to do all of that. So now you are in charge. Now what happens, so I'm going to be the guardian of my mother. So the court, as a family member, will say, okay, what are the assets of your mother? Okay, well, my mother owns a home, and then she owns a beach house, and she has, 2.5 million in the bank. The court's going to go, because the court doesn't want me to, for lack of a better word, abscond, put the money in my pocket and run, or have, sign some mortgage or some quitclaim deed to give me the house, and I sell it and I run off with the money. So they don't want you to do that. So they're going to require me to get a bond. What is a bond? A bond protects the ward. So the bond will say, okay, if she's got 2 homes, and she's got this 2.5 million in the bank, they're going to require me to get a bond for that amount, which is going to be quite pricey, to ensure and secure those assets in the event that I do something that I shouldn't do. So there is accountability there. So they make you do that. Also, what they do as a guardian, they make you file what's called an initial plan. What is that initial plan? The initial plan is a snapshot of my mother. So the court can get a little snapshot of her. What's her name? Where does she live? Who are her doctors? What does she like to do? All of those things to kind of say, here's the kind of person my mother is, and here's where she's at, and here's who her doctors are, and this is what she likes to do, all of that kind of stuff. So they get a personal snapshot of her. Then they also require an initial inventory. What does that mean? What does your mom have? What does my mom have? Well, she has a 2.5 million in Bank of America. And then she has 2 houses. This is where they're located. This is their value. This is her personal. Now, they're not going to have you list all her personal property like a pen and a watch and earrings, but giving a totality of the value of her personal property. Then there's a little section for income, Social Security income, pension, railroad pension, I don't know, steelworkers pension, whatever it may be, and then the amount. And then I have to that initial inventory, I have to attach proof. So that Bank of America account, boop, I got to attach the statement. Her properties, boop, attach the deeds. Her personal property, really don't, it's hard to attach all this is her furniture. But I got to prove her income. So her Social Security, I got to get that little letter that Social Security sends out at the end of every year that shows your little cost of living increase. I got to attach that. I got to get a letter from the pension, attach that. So I can show proof of all this to the court, right? So the court has a starting base. Okay, this is what she has. This is what we need to see at the next accounting period. Because guess what? Every year you got to do the same thing. You got to do an annual plan. Again, my mom's name, where is she at? Who are her doctors? What does she like to do? But on that annual plan, you have to attach an MD report, a doctor's report that says my mother still lacks capacity. Attach that and file that. Then an annual accounting. Ooh, this is where we kind of go awry. You have to account unless you get it waived. A lot of times we get that annual accounting waived, especially if the person who has a guardianship over them is in a facility and their money's going to the facility and they have nothing else. I mean, you don't have to account for the money because all you're going to show is money in and money out to the nursing home, money in and money out to the nursing home. So it's pointless. So we waive it. But if you got some money there, then yes, there's going to be an annual accounting and you have to account for everything you've spent. So we always have our guardians, okay, we need to file a motion. We need to file a motion. Maybe you want to buy a prepaid burial. Maybe you want to pay the attorney. Maybe you want some fees. What else? Maybe you want to buy a wheelchair or something like that. Now, the little everyday stuff, yeah, you're going to Walmart. Now, one thing they won't let you do in the state of Florida is carry a debit card as a guardian. You can't be out doing this with a debit card. You have to have checks and balances for that. So every year they do an inventory, and I'm telling you, they have a whole department, at least here in the state of Florida, and every county I've practiced at, they have a little department that goes through that inventory, man, and they'll say, okay, there was $100 spent at such and such. We need an explanation. They're pretty good. They're pretty good at looking at it. So you always just have to, your job is to maintain that money and only spend it as necessary. So that's why I always get court orders for everything. If I wanted to sell one of my mother's properties, I got to file a motion or have my attorney file a motion. I got to attach pictures of the property. I got to attach comparables. I got to attach the listing agreement, and the court has to agree that that's a reasonable figure to sell that home. I can't sell the home at $100 to, my son, because that's not reasonable. I got to sell it at fair market value and what the comparables show. So that's how the court keeps track of you. Oh, hi, Angelica. What a beautiful name. Hello, my cousin Lydia wishes to challenge the guardianship of her father. Under what conditions can a guardianship be contested in Florida? Oh, great question. So there must be, and it's hard to say because your question is general. If there's already a guardian appointed and she wants to challenge the guardianship, she wants to challenge who's been appointed, then you've got to, file things with the court. You got to hire an attorney. You got to go through all that saying, hey, I don't think this guardian is is working in this person's best interest and my father's best interest, I want them removed. And I either want myself appointed, I've gotten my fingerprints, I've had my credit check, all of that. And really, the courts look at it. If there's a professional guardian appointed and family comes forward, as long as family qualifies, they really look at the least restrictive. So they're, as long as that family member, passes a background check, the credit check, and has good intention, of course they'll be appointed, and and the professional guardian will go away, because who's better to take care of your father than family. So if there's a guardianship filed but none's been appointed yet, then it's a matter of, then she needs to file what I call competing guardianship petition. So she has to hire an attorney. She has to get background check, fingerprints, fill out an application, hire an attorney. Well, I think I already said hire an attorney, but I like to hit that home. Hire an attorney, because again, you have to have an attorney, and then they can have what we call a contested guardianship, where the judge is going to decide who is best to meet the needs of this person, of your father. Is it, if there's a professional guardian that's applied and she's family, again, they like to go with least restrictive. Or if there are two family members that are competing, then it's going to be a whole trial. Believe me, I have sat in on an entire day trial in a guardianship. For my client, I represented, like your father, I represented the ward, or the alleged incapacitated person. That's what we call them, because the alleged incapacitated person is entitled to an attorney. So they either hire their own attorney if they can, or the court appoints somebody, or a regional conflict counsel is appointed if they don't have any money. But they have that attorney to fight for them. So if the ward or the alleged incapacitated person says, I don't want this person to be my guardian, I want this person. That's what our job is as the attorney for the alleged incapacitated person, is to say he objects. He doesn't want this person. He wants your cousin Lydia to be his guardian. So the court will take great weight with that. So they would have a trial to see who is best suited to be the guardian of your father, not of your father, but of her father. So there's lots of ways to do that here in Florida, to challenge. Like I said, I've had challenges. I've had ones that haven't been challenged. I've had family members go, I just can't do it. I can't do it, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You'll get calls in the middle of the night. You have to account for their money. You have to be available. So I get family members. I had one many years ago. He was a guardian of his mother. He applied to be the guardian of his mother, and he had several siblings. I don't remember how many, but they all wanted to be the guardian too. But none of them hired an attorney. None of them filed any paperwork. None of them got background check, nothing. They just showed up in court and raised their, I want to be the guardian. And the judge said, I don't have, the only application I have in front of me is this person right here. So this is what I'm going off of. So he was appointed the guardian, and he was a guardian for a year. And after a year, he came to me and said, I can't do it anymore. I can't. It's too much. And it took a lot for him to come to me and say that, because it was his mother. It was his mother. And so he said, I would prefer that a professional guardian be appointed, because I don't think my siblings are going to be the best. So that's what we did, per his wishes, because he was a guardian, and we found a professional guardian, and we applied to have this professional guardian appointed. So what happened in court? Of course, all the siblings showed up with their spouses this time, right? With their husbands and their wives at this time. And they showed up and they all said, we want to be the guardian. Again, the judge said, all I have is this application in front of me. That's all I have. I have nothing from any of you. I'm going to appoint this professional. But if any of you would like to hire an attorney, get your fingerprints, get your credit history checked, and get your pleadings filed, we'll be more than happy to come back and revisit this. Do you know, none of them did. So that professional guardian took care of her. Of course, this professional guardian, of course, went to the family and discussed things and all of that. And that little lady, she lived in her house until she passed away. And her favorite hobby was to feed the neighborhood cats. I'm like, and I remember the professional guardian going, oh my gosh, she's going to run out of cat food. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sure the neighbors love that. These cats are around. But anyway, that's what she needs to do. If there has not been a guardian appointed yet, then have her hire an attorney, get all that stuff in, so that there can be a meeting of the minds and the judge can decide. Or if there has been one, then still going through all that and filing what we call a successor guardianship. So excellent question. If you have any more issues about that, please have your cousin or something give us a call because I'd be more than happy to help her through that. Okay, our last but final icing on the cake or cherry on the sundae is a guardian advocate. Now, guardian advocate came quite a few years ago in statute, and I remember one of the judges, Judge Kirkwood. He was really instrumental in getting this statute written and passed. It was for, and I have a nephew who's autistic. I have a friend whose son has special needs, so I can really relate to this. This is for individuals or parents who have children that are special needs, that just they can't be alone. They can't function on their own. They'll never be independent. But they turn 18. And what does that mean here in the United States? That means they're an adult. That means they hold all the rights of an adult like you and me. And maybe they're severely autistic and they can't talk or they can't walk and they can't dress themselves. They can't take care of themselves. They can't make decisions, but they're an adult. And you call, maybe you're trying to apply for Social Security benefits and you're trying to talk to Social Security on their behalf, and Social Security does this click because you're not that person. And so what do you have to do? Well, do I have to go through and get a complete guardianship and go through the incapacity and do all that? No, because the state of Florida came up with something called guardian advocate. Now, the guardian advocate is only for the person, meaning that guardian can only make decisions regarding medical, regarding the person, the body, cannot make decisions regarding money. But most of the time, if Social Security is already in place, they can apply for representative payee of that Social Security check, those kind of things without having to be the guardian. But they can make medical decisions. So the guardian advocate, it does not require an attorney. Can you believe I'm saying that? Yeah. Strike me dead. But you don't need an attorney. You can do it on your own. But I have a lot of them come to me because it is a lot of paperwork and they don't understand. And it's easier, one and done. Just come to me, pay me, we do it, we get it taken care of. So the guardian advocate is just saying, hey, my child who is now 18 years old has a disability, and here's the medical record to show you. So you have to show proof to the court. Hey, look, my child was diagnosed with autism when they were 3 years old. Here's the medical records. Here's a letter from the doctor. I need to be their guardian advocate, meaning I need to be the guardian of the person. So there'll be a hearing. The judge will rule on it. One time I had a hearing. This was years ago. God love them. I love this family that I did a guardian advocate for. I just loved their daughter. She's very special to me. She's still very special. But we're in the hearing, right? And the hearing is recorded. So there's little microphones in front of us. And we have to talk into the microphone to make sure that the clerk who's wearing the headset can hear, right? And make sure that it's being recorded. And so my little lady, the parents were getting guardian advocate over her, and she's in front of the microphone, and they put little noise canceling on her because she, with that stimuli, she can get a little agitated. And she's sitting at the table and we're all talking, and all of a sudden she goes like this to the microphone. She goes, doot, 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 doot. And the clerk goes, whoa, because she had the headphones on, and it was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh, but it was quite funny. It was hilarious because she didn't mean to do it. She didn't know what she was doing. And the poor clerk, but it was all good. So the parents were appointed guardian advocate of her. And to this day, I still see them once a year to submit, because you still got to submit that plan. You don't have to do the accounting because you're not in charge of any money, but just that plan. What's her name? Where does she live? Who are her doctors? All of that kind of stuff. So it's a little lighter proceeding for those people who have children that are aging out. So Jamal, hello. Oh, look at you. You're on the beach. I'm jealous. Good afternoon, Attorney Sterling. My mother has been showing signs of dementia. I'm sorry. And I'm really concerned about her well-being. I've been considering stepping in to help manage her affairs. Very good. She's lucky to have you. How can I initiate the guardianship process for her in Florida? I want to ensure she's taken care of properly. Thank you for your help. Oh, you're welcome, Jamal. I mean, God bless you. Your mother is lucky to have you, to be there for her, to advocate for her. The first thing, like I said at the beginning, that you need is an attorney. You need to hire an attorney. We'd be more than happy to help you in the state of Florida, but wherever you are, hey, wherever you feel comfortable, is to hire an attorney, and then we go through the process. Again, what I always do with my family members is I do I do the two questions. Have you ever been arrested or convicted of a crime? Because certain crimes disqualify you as a guardian. And how is your financial situation? I always feel bad asking those questions because it seems kind of intrusive, doesn't it? But I have to, because otherwise we go to court and the judge will say, hey, wait a minute, you've got a criminal history. I don't like that. I want to know ahead of time so, it doesn't come out in open court, that we know ahead of time. So, and then what we do is we draft the pleadings, all of that. We file. Again, the mental health case is opened. They appoint 3 examining committee members to come out and see your mother, and they submit a report. The judge looks at that. If they're saying, hey, she's totally incapacitated, that case closes. And then they look to see who's the guardian. And Jamal, if you're the only one that's filed an application and you qualify, you're good to go. Now, if you have siblings, we always like to let all the next of kin, we call them NOCs, next of kin, and okay, next of kin need to be notified. If you have any siblings, we'd like to know about that, or any other family member. I mean, I try not to get way out there, okay, it's children, it would technically be her children. Am I going to go out to your cousin? No, her children are the most important. Their succession. If they all agree, they say, hey, Jamal, you should be the guardian. You're the best one. You like the beach. You can take mom to the beach every day. That's fabulous. We agree. We generally have them sign consents, or we send them, and we send them all the pleadings. They can look through it. They can sign the consent we send, and they can certainly attend the hearing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We send them the link. They can appear. If they object, they can appear to object, but they need to have a good reason. And do they want to be the guardian? Then they got to hire an attorney, get their background check, all of that as well. But if they all agree, they can certainly be involved. And Jamal, if you have siblings and they've all elected you to be the guardian, you most certainly can sit down and make decisions regarding your mother with all of your siblings, and not just make them on your own, so that you feel comfortable in making decisions for your entire family regarding your mother. So thank you very much, Jamal. I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I hope that, you get the help you need, and please, contact us if you need that help. So anyway, I tell you, I'm getting worn out. You guys have some really good questions. Guardianship is really a sensitive subject, I know. I had a family member that was under guardianship. She still is under guardianship. And sometimes with professional guardians, sometimes maybe they drop out. Maybe they're not doing it anymore. Maybe they don't want to be the guardian anymore. So then we have to appoint a successor guardian, whether that be another professional that'll take over, or maybe it'll be a family member that has come around and says, hey, I want to be the guardian. And I have to say, in my cases, when there's family members that come forward that want to do things, I always try to, bow away if it's family versus a professional, because really, you know them best, and this is, like Jamal with his mother, but of course, if he feels it's too much, he can always say, hey, it's too much. Me and my siblings, it's just too much. Can we get a professional? And that professional, if they're a good professional, they should be communicating with you, and they should be asking your opinion, and they should be asking you what they should do, and they should really keep you involved. Now, so let's say Jamal, let's use you, Jamal, your mother, you get guardianship over her. And it's a plenary guardianship, meaning complete and full. You're in charge of her person and her property. But suddenly she gets better, and she really comes around. And I've had this happen many times. I had a 21-year-old that had a traumatic brain injury, and the aunt got guardianship over him. And guess what? He recovered. He may not have 100% recovered, but he was good. He was really good. So what do we do in that case? We file what's called a suggestion of capacity, saying, hey, we believe this person has regained their capacity. They should no longer be under a guardianship. So then what happens? Then the court will take that in, and they'll appoint a doctor, another doctor out of the examining committee, a medical doctor, to go and see that individual and make a report. So that person will go out, that medical doctor will go out, they'll see that individual, maybe your mother, and say, you know what? She's back to full capacity and she should have her capacity back. And they'll write their little report saying all the things that she should get back, submit it to the court, and then the judge decides based on that. And of course, they're reappointed the attorney, so the attorney can go out and also make an assessment and let the court know as well. And I've had several people that have gotten their capacity back. Sometimes I have to say, some people think, oh, well, they're homeless and so they lack capacity, or they drink and they lack capacity. That doesn't necessarily mean people lack capacity. There's people that have lived in the woods their entire life and that's where they're comfortable. We had one that was homeless and we got a guardianship over him, put him in a facility. I think he lasted like 2 months. He was back out in the woods again. So my poor guardian, she's trying to find him. She finally finds him and she's like, listen, we need to get a suggestion of capacity. This guy can make his own decisions. He wants to live in the woods. And should we deny him that just because we don't agree with him living in the woods? No, that's his decision. So we actually had the court appoint a doctor. Do you know the doctor actually went to the woods? I don't remember, was it he or she? They actually went to the woods and examined him. And they did an examination and they determined that he could have his capacity back. Now, they were still saying that he should have a guardian for certain issues, but the certain issues were so nominal. So he went in front of the judge and had a hearing and said, Your Honor, I mean, he lives in the woods. You know, he also had a family member that was willing to help out, but didn't want to be the guardian, but he was willing to help out. And we're like, listen, he should get his capacity back. He wants to live in the woods. Let the man live in the woods. And the judge agreed. She gave him full capacity back. And so now his brother is able to take care of him. If he wants to live in the woods, he can live in the woods. God bless him for living in the woods. Hi, Jesse. My neighbor was recently appointed as a guardian for his niece. So God bless him. How does the court in Florida monitor him to ensure he's acting in her best interest? Excellent question, right? Because it's a family member, you know, when it's a professional, they're overseen by the Office of the Public and Professional Guardian. But when they're a family member, who does? Well, the court does. And of course, if the neighbor isn't acting in his niece's best interest, other family members can file things with court. But every year, like I said, they have to do, well, when they're first appointed, they have to do an initial plan. And if he's guardian over the property, they have to do an initial inventory. And then every year, do an annual plan and then an annual accounting. So the court looks at those and takes them very seriously. So if there's some funky stuff going on with the money, the court's going to call him in on what we call an order to show cause. Hey, why are all these, why are you taking out all this money? Why are you spending all this money? What are you spending it on? You don't have a court order. You don't have anything. Well, we do sometimes for our wards that are living at home, maybe with a family member, we'll ask the court to do an order for a monthly allowance from the person's Social Security, like maybe $1,000 to help pay bills because, they're living there, and the court will generally grant that on good cause shown. But if we're just spending money as a guardian, the court's going to call that person in and be like, what's going on? And the court can remove a guardian. They have every right, if they feel they're not working in their best interest, to remove them. If it's based on, reports, or maybe they send out the court monitor to take a look, or they see, or maybe they don't file their annual plan or their annual accounting. The judge is going to call them in and say, you sit right here and tell me why you haven't done this. And they can remove them if they don't. So there are a lot of safeguards that are there. So I know it is, like I said, kind of scary that this person is now in charge of them. And oh my gosh, I hope they do a good job and they work in their best interest. And so hopefully the court is there and they're able to do all that, and they don't do things, they'll call them in and ask them why. And I even had a judge one time almost take my guardian into custody. I was like, wait. I was able to talk down. But if they don't act in the best interest, they certainly can be removed. Excellent question, Jesse. I'm glad that you asked that. Like I said, don't ever think like, oh my gosh, I can't ask Ms. Sterling or I can't ask Laura this question because it sounds silly. There is never a silly question, right? Because if you have that question, there's probably 12 other people out there that have that same question. And so we can, talk it through, and then it sparks me to get even more information out there. So I do appreciate your calls. Wouldn't that be nice if we had call-ins? I do appreciate your questions because they help kind of spark all other things. Anyway, so the guardianship that is in place, the court proceeding, the guardianship court proceeding is open until it's closed. And why does it close? Maybe the person gets their capacity back, gets all their capacity back, which is always a happy time. We're always excited when they get that. And like I said, I've had a lot of them. It's been a really happy occasion. Or the flip side of that, the ward passes away. The ward is what we call once a guardianship has been approved. So they pass away. What do we do when they pass away? We file a suggestion of death. So the court's aware, hey, this person's passed away. We file the death certificate. Here in Florida, we file the death certificate without cause of death. And then the guardian has to do a final accounting. They don't have to do a final plan because we know what the final plan is. They've passed away. But they do have to do a final accounting. We have to alert any next of kin and all of that kind of stuff. And any objections have to be timed out. And then the court will discharge the guardian. And then their bond, if they had a bond, that will be released as well. And so that's how, and then the case closes and it's no more. So, and then if there's assets left over in the guardianship, that's a whole nother life. Then who's ever the next of kin has to open a probate, because that money doesn't automatically go to next of kin. No, there has to be a probate. And if there is no next of kin, what we do is we put the funds into the registry of the court. I just dropped off a huge check to the court because there is no next of kin. Maybe someday next of kin might show up and they'll file something and the court will say, hey, you have some money here. If not, then what they do is they take that money after they take their portion, the clerk, and send it up to Tallahassee here to the unclaimed property. And maybe down the road, somebody might claim it, but it was a lot of money. So that's what we do with the assets. You can't just automatically pass it over. There has to be, because what if there's creditors and all of that kind of stuff? But again, that's for a different life. Well, I hope I answered all of your questions. And I hope you learned a little something from my live today. Now, remember, as you know, I'm here every month, once a month, doing my live show, both here on Facebook and on YouTube. Next month, I'm going to surprise you with what topic I want to do. So please stay tuned. As you know, every week I do my little videos, and then once a month I do my live show. And also I have a podcast now, so make sure on Spotify, Law Time with Laura, make sure you pay attention. I always try to go globally, and then I compare it to Florida, to some big topics. So we'll let you know what that's going to be. And I'm so happy that you joined me. I'm honored that you pay attention. Thank you so much for your questions. And please, if you're in Florida and you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to call me. Otherwise, watch me on Facebook, YouTube, and my podcast. Have a great day.